Hello everyone and welcome back to the MTG Novels Project. The MTG Novels Project is available both on YouTube and as a podcast version. Check the description for details. A legal note. This is an unofficial audiobook with original content belonging to Wizards of the Coast. This content is covered under the 2017 Wizards of the Coast fan content policy. Listener discretion is advised. We're reading today Chapter 5 of Planeswalker. Bread, water, and the absence of tight leather around his neck worked swift wonders for Rat's stamina. He didn't need Xancha's help as they walked away from the fountain, but his natural ply clashed with the chain between his ankles and guaranteed the sort of attention Xancha preferred not attract. They'd never get through the gate without incident, so once they were clear of the plaza, she chose the narrow street at each crossing until they came to a long abandoned courtyard. Good choice, Xancha. The windows are mortared, the doors too, except for the one we came in. Rat kicked at the rubble and picked up a bone that might have been a child's leg. Been here before? Is this where you meet Urza? Xancha let the comment slide. Put your foot up here. She pointed to an overturned pedestal. I've got rid of that chain. With what? Rat approached the pedestal but kept both feet on the ground. Garv's got the key. Xancha huffed in a chunk and grabbed it. I'll break it. Now with that you won't. I'll take my chances with Urza. She shook her head. We've got 4 days traveling before then. Waste not, want not, Rat. You can't run. You're helpless. He didn't argue, but didn't put his foot up on the pedestal either. Do you prefer being chained and hobbled like an animal? I'm your slave. You bought me. Better keep me hobbled and helpless, if you want to keep me at all. I need a man who can play Misha's part with Urza. I give you my word. Play the part, and you'll be free in a year. Free to tell Urza's secrets to the Red Stripes. Never. But that was a worry for the future. For the present. Give me your word. The word of a slave? Red interrupted. Remember that. He put his foot on the pedestal. And be careful. Xancha brought the stone down with a crash that was louder than she expected. Less effective, too. Perhaps it would be better to wait. Unfettering a youth who looked like Misha might be all that Urza needed to free himself from the past. And maybe they'd have to run away from Red Stripes. Xancha understood how Urza must have felt when they traveled. Worried about a companion who couldn't take care of herself. Angry and bitter, too. She smashed the ground against this chain. Sparks flew, but the links didn't. Gritting her teeth, Xancha pounded repeatedly, but with no greater success. Rat seized her wrists. Don't act a fool. She could have dropped the stone in his foot and used both hands to throttle his insolence, and Xancha might have, if she hadn't been so astonished by his warmth, letting flesh against hers. Seer and Urza touched each other, casually, but frequently, and never with particular passions. Rat's hand shook as he held her, perhaps because slavery had weakened him, but there was something else, something elusive, unnerving. Xancha was relieved that he released her the instant their eyes met. I'm trying to help you, she said acidly. You're not helping. You're making noise. Noise is bad, if you're trying to hide. For that matter, why are we hiding? If Tuktaz couldn't tell the Red Strikes, I'm not your ransom cousin. I'm trying to keep you out of trouble. Rat laughed. You're too late for that, Xancha. Now, why don't we stop playing child games and go to your father's house? If Taberna's laws still mean anything in this forsaken town, it's illegal for one Effund to own another. You're the one who's in trouble for wasting your father's gold. You paid too much to ransom me. Is your father a tyrant, or can he be reasoned with? Given her disguise, Rat presumed observations weren't unreasonable. I don't have a father. I don't live in this town. I live with Urza. We've got a long, she considered telling what the sphere and decided not to, journey, and since I have your word. She brought the stone down in the metal. You'll be at that all afternoon and halfway through the night. Xancha shrugged. They couldn't leave before then. Not if she was going to use the sphere to get them over the walls. She smashed the stone again. A flake of ground drew blood from Rat's shin. The link was unharmed. Rat rubbed the room and lowered his leg. All right. I don't believe you, but if you're determined to play a game at this end, there's an easier way to get out of this town. Do you have any money left? Sancha didn't answer, but Rat had seen her purse, and perceivably knew it wasn't empty. Look, go back to the plaza and play some farmer to loan me into his wagon. Or better, find a smith with a decent hammer and chisel. Get these things off the same way they got put on. With sleepers in the town, Sancha didn't want to look for strangers, but there was one farmer in the plaza market who wasn't a stranger. I gave my horse to a farmer with a wagon. You had a horse? I had no faith in any of it, so I gave it to a man who did, and promised to care for it. Avo, here's mercy. You had no need of a horse, so you gave it away. You didn't even bargain with Tokta. He swore again. I've been sold by a beast to a madman. No, a mad child. Did your father usually keep you locked up? I could sell you back, said Sancha coldly. I imagine you had a long and pleasant life ahead of you. She started to retrace the route. Rat followed as quietly as he could with the chain dragged on the ground. Once they were blocking the plaza, Sancha told him to wait in the shadows while he negotiated with the farmer. He agreed, but measured every wall with his eyes, and twisted each battered link in the obvious hope that she'd weakened it. As soon as he thought she could see him, well, he warned her that his word was worth. When Johnson pointed him out to the farmer, he wanted no part of her plan. I'll give you your horse back. A horse is no use to a slave with a chain between his ankles. Imagine if you set the slave free. He'd be willing to travel with you, the farmer countered, still skeptical. I forgot to buy the key to his chains. The farmer hesitated. The slaver and her coffle had moved on, but the farmer had glanced toward the tavern when Sancha had mentioned slaves. Likely he'd watched the whole scene with her, the slaver, Garv, and Rat. Have him come over, and I'll speak to him myself. Alone. Moments later, Sancha told Rat, it's your choice. He wants to know if you're worth the risk. Sancha gave Rat a look that said liar, and got to his feet. Sancha blocked his path. Look, I didn't tell him the truth about Urza and Misha, or anything like that. Just that we're cousins. And before, when I gave him the horse, I told him I was alone because I've been traveling with my uncle. We've been ambushed by Shraddha, and everybody but me had been killed. It was good enough at the time, before I spotted you. But it's going to make things more difficult now. Rat frowned and shook his head. As if I was as dumb as you look. I died before I learned to walk. What names did you give him? None, Sancha replied. He didn't ask. You need a keeper, Sancha, Rat muttered as he walked away from her. You haven't got the sense Avahur gives to ants and worms. Rat could have run, or tried to, but chose to get out of stand instead. The farmer waved for Sancha to join him. Not saying I believe you, either of you, he said, offering Sancha his plain woven cloak to wear instead of her fancier one. Climb in now. These are strange times. Bad times. A man doesn't put trust in words. I put mine in Avohir. I'll get you out of Medran, and Avohir be my judge if I'm wrong. Sancha considered stowing her sword in the wagon bed, where Rat rode, with straw and empty baskets piled out around him to hide the chain. But her slave had a flair for foretelling. His imagination made her nervous. You're not wrong, good man, Rat said cheerfully as he rearranged the baskets. Not about my cousin and me. Not about the times, either. 2 months ago I had everything. Then one night I was carousing with friends who weren't friends and lost it all. Woke up in change. I told them who I was. Ratepe, eldest son of Medora from Pinkar City. My father would ransom me. Got a swift kick and a broken rib. I'd given up hope months ago. But I hadn't reckoned my cousin, Anuwan. Sancha jumped when Rat slapped her between the shoulders. Anuwan was probably a less conspicuous foreign name than Sancha, and the moment Rat introduced it, the farmer relaxed and offered his. Assessor, he said, and embraced Rat, not her. Sancha was used to following everybody else. She'd followed Urza for over 3 years, but Rat was different. Rat smiled and told Assessor easy tales of pranks he and Ruwan had pulled on their elders. He was very persuasive. She would have believed him herself if she hadn't known that was supposed to be Aruwan. Of course, maybe there was an Aruwan, And maybe Rat's only lie was that he didn't look at her while he was spinning out his tales. Maybe he was harmless, but Zamcha, who was nowhere near as harmless as she pretended to be, hadn't survived Phyrexia, Urza, and countless other perils by assuming that everything was harmless. She kept her sword close and palmed a few black metal coins that didn't come from any king or prince's mint. Then, as Assessor called home to his harnessed horse, she settled in for the ride. Silence hung thick among them. Ordinary folk going about their late afternoon affairs looked up as they passed. Sancha could think of nothing to say except that she longed to be in the air, headed back to the college, neither of which were safe subjects of conversation. Then Rat asked the farmer, "Do you keep sheep in your fallows, or do you grow peas?" He followed that question with another and another until he lured the farmer into an animated discussion about the proper way to plow the field. The farmer favored straight furrows. Rat said a sunwise spiral towards the center was better. They were in mid-argument when the red stripes waved the wagon through the gate. As they cleared the first rise between the town walls, even Assessor realized what Rat had done. And while Zancha wailed away in her armor, "Where are you from, lad? The truth, no more of your lies. You're no one's cousins. I'll wave you're no farmer either, despite your talk. You're too clever by half to be village bred." Rat grinned and told a different story. I read once how Hatu's son, the blind, had escaped from a besieged city by talking with the weather. It seemed worth trying. Read about it, eh? Assessor asked before Ganja could see that she'd never heard of Hatusu the blind. "Then for certain you're no farmer." "I've never seen a book, but Avo here's holy book, and I listened instead of read. Is your name truly Retepe, eldest son of Medea?" Zancha was watching Rat closely from the corner of her eyes. She caught him flinching as Assessor sounded out his name. His roguing vanished, replaced by an empty stare that looked at nothing and gave nothing away. "It is," he answered with a voice that was both deeper and younger than she had heard before. "And Medea, my father, was a farmer when he died. A good farmer who plants his fields sunwise every spring and fall. He was a lecturer of philosophy at Taberna School in Pinar City, before the Shrada burnt it down." If Rat's second accounting of life was more accurate than his first, he'd had a comfortable childhood and loving parents, but his cozy world had been overturned 10 years ago, when the Shrada swarmed the royal city, preaching that any knowledge that couldn't be read in Avohir's book wasn't knowledge at all. They had no use for libraries or school, so they set them ablaze. Rat's father had been one of the many who appealed to Taberna for protection against the Shrada mobs, and to Taberna's son, Katal, who funded the Red Stripes to protect them. Then Katal died, poisoned by Shrada, or so said the Red Stripes, who avenged his death. The city dissolved into carnage and riots. We tried. Father grew a beard. Mother made jellies and sold them in a market. I stayed out of trouble. Tried to stay out of trouble, but it wasn't any use. The Shrada knew our names. They caught my uncle. I called him my uncle, but he was only a friend. My father's closest friend. They drew his guts out through a hole in his belly, then set fire to his house after they locked his family inside. Our neighbors came to set our house ablaze too. Father said that they were afraid of everything, ready to believe anything. He said it wasn't their fault, but they didn't stop the flames. We got away through a hole in the garden wall. Sancha wanted to believe her slave. She'd been to Pinkar City, where simple houses, each with a tiny garden, packed the narrow streets. She could almost see a frightened family running through the moonlight, though Rat hadn't said that they left by day or by night. That seemed to be Rat's charms. Rat's near magic. When he took a deep breath and started talking, everything he said rang true. Misha never stooped to flattery. Caleb Ben Krug had written nearly 3,400 years earlier. He didn't have to. He had the gift of sincerity, and he was the most dangerous man I'd ever met. We fled to Avular, where my mother had kin. From Avular we went to Gam. Assessor grunted. He'd heard of the places. Good land for flocks and herding, not so good for grain growing. Not so good for city-bred boys either, Red added. But the Shrada didn't bother us. At least they didn't bother us any more than they bothered everybody else. We paid their tithes and lived by the book, and thought we were lucky. Santa clenched her teeth. In all the multiverse, there is no curse to compare with feeling lucky. I'd taken 2 sheep to the next village, to a man who didn't need sheep, but he had a daughter. Rat almost smiled before his face hardened. I missed a Strata as I left, and it was over when I returned. All Gan was dead, butchered. The men's with their throats slit, the women strangled with their skirts, the children with their skulls smashed against the wall. Rat's voice had flattened, as if he were reciting from a dull text, yet that lack of expression served to make his words all the more believable. I found my father, my mother, my brother, and sister. I shouldn't have looked. It would have been better not to. Then I ran to the next village. But I was there too late as well. Everyone I knew was dead. I wanted to join them. I wanted to die. I wanted to join the Red Stripes. If I could get to Avular. I knew the way, but the slavers found me in the second night. Either Rat told the painful truth, or he's a stone-cold liar. The farmer had no doubts. He cursed the Strata, then the Red Stripes, and already heard Sancha's false tale earlier in the day, invited them both into his family. Sancha declined. We have family awaiting us in the south. The wagon was rolling west. It's time for us to take our leave. Past time. We should have taken the last crossroads. Both Sancha and the farmer looked to Rat, who hesitated before shaking off the straw and baskets that had concealed his feathers. Good work, Sancha, whispered while the farmer scuttled about, filling one of the baskets with food. He's a good man, said Rat. The farmer presented them with the basket where Sancha could challenge her companion's resolve. Sancha returned the homespun cloak. Walk fast, he said. There remembers Rat's feathers. Try. There's been no trouble this close to Medran, but we all lay close after sunset. The moon's waxed. There'll be light on the road. When you get south to Citizen, ask for Corday. He's the smith there. Tell him he rode with me, with Assessor, his wife's brother by marriage. He'll break the chain on his anvil. Good luck to you. Sancha hosted the basket and started walking, glancing back over his shoulder every few steps. He didn't believe you, Rat chided. He didn't believe either of us. He believed me because I told the truth. So did I, Sancha cuttered. Rat shook his head. Not to me, you haven't. Urza, Mishra, dead uncles, ransom cousins. You're a lousy liar, Sancha. She let the provocations pass. They walked until the wagon had rolled out of sight. Then Sancha stopped. She set down the basket and faced Rat with her fists on her hips. I saved your right, Rotepe. That's no lie. All I've asked for in return is you help me with Ursa. It doesn't matter if you believe me, as long as I can trust you. You bought me. You can make me do what you ask, but I'll fight you, I swear, every step of the way. That's what you can trust. I ransomed you. Ransom? Ava here's mercy. You said I was your cousin. Do you think Tukta believed that? You're a bold liar, Sancha. That's not the same as a good one. Tukta sold me. You bought me. I'm still a slave. Don't bother being kind. I won't love you. I will escape. Sancha sighed and rolled her eyes dramatically. Rat accepted the invitation by lunging to her throat. If it had been a fair fight, Sancha would have gone down and stayed down. Rat's reach was half an arm longer than hers. He weighed nearly twice as much, but Rat had been fed to maintain the muscles of his long bones, and Sancha was a Phyrexian newt. Urza said she was built like a cat or a serpent, slippery and subtle, impossible to pin down or keep unbalanced. Rat had her in her back in a heartbeat before she threw him aside. While he rose slowly to his knees, Sancha sprang to his feet. She snapped his fingers. There, you're free, as simple as that. You're no longer a slave. I ask you to honor what you give you, help me with Urza. When you've done that, in a year, I'll return you to this place. I give my word. You're a moon cow, Sancha. Your parts don't fit together. Fine clothes, a soul, gold from Nari, from Morvorin. This Urza of yours. Avo, here's mercy. What do you take me for? Rat tried to step aside, but his feathers assured that his strides were shorter than hers. After a few more failed diversions, Sancha seized her wrists. You were going to die, Ratepe. Maybe, maybe not. Rat had the reach and the leverage to free himself. As soon as he had the opportunity, he grabbed for the slave gold tucked in Sancha's belt. Throw it down, Sancha warned. I don't want to hurt you. Rat laughed and played fingers over the rod's smooth black surface. A shimmering yellow web sprang from its tip. You can't hurt me. You can't save yourself from getting hurt by dropping your purse, your gold, and turning around and following that wagon. Sancha eyed the web. She could feel the power where she stood, but had but gone to Garv. Tukta wouldn't have given her dim assistant a goad that could seriously damage the merchandise. But as a fussage sigh, she gave one last chance. You owe me your life. Make peace with it, and be done with it. Rat rushed her, raising her arm for a mighty blow that Sancha might elude. She stopped one foot in his chain, then put a fist into his gut. He tried to move with the punch, but lost his balance when the chain tightened. He fell hard, leading with his forehead and losing his grip on the slave goad. Sancha grabbed the goad and broke it. Despite the numbing yellow light that oozed over her arms, she hurled both pieces far into the brush beyond the road. She retrieved the farmer's basket. Rat had lowered himself into one elbow and was trying to rise further when she shoved him back again. She put the food basket on his stomach, then knelt on his breastbone. All right, you win. You're a slave, and you do what I tell you to do because I can make you. Sancha exhaled deeply. She ran through her mnemonic rhyme, and she yawned. The sphere was invisible, but not imperceptible. Rat screamed as it flowed over him. Don't even think about trying to escape, Sancha warned. Weight wasn't a problem. Sancha could have carried a barrel of iron or lead back to the college. Size was another matter. The sphere grew until it was the size of her outstretched arms. Then it stiffened and began to rise. Rat panicked. The sphere lurched and shot like an arrow, thrown against one side of the basket. Then the scabbard slung at Sancha's side. There were too many things competing for Sancha's attention. She eliminated the largest distraction by punching it in the gut. They were less than a man's height over the ground when she got everything steady. Rat breathed noisily through his wide-open mouth. Even after that, they began to soar gently westward. He pressed himself against his bubble. His arms were sprawled and his palms were flat against the sphere's inner curve. Nothing moved except his fingers, which clawed silently, compulsively, a cat steadying itself on glass. Sancha tried to sort out the tangle of legs, cloak, and overturned basket at the bottom of the sphere, but her least move pushed her companion towards panic. A nearly full moon showed faintly above the eastern horizon. She planned to soar through the well of the night. That would have been unspeakably cruel, and though she was tempted, her forearms ached where the slave's sorcery had surrounded them. She resisted the temptation. The sphere swung like a falling leaf in the cool night air, a pleasant, even relaxing moment for Sancha, but sheer torture for Rat, who began to pray between gasps. Sancha guided them slowly to ground, near a twisted line of trees. She warned him. Put your hands over your face now. The sphere's skin will collapse around against you when it touches the ground. It vanished more quickly than cobwebs in a flame, but for that moment it covers your mouth and nose. You'll think you're suffocating. Rat motioned when Sancha took as a sign that he'd heard and understood, but he didn't take her advice. He clawed himself as he clawed the spheres. There were bloody streaks against his face before he calmed down. There's a stream through the trees. Wash yourself. Drink. You'll feel better after. Sancha stood over him, offering an arm up, which predictably he refused. She gave him a clear path to the stream and another warning. Don't think about running. He was gone a long time. Sancha might have worried that he'd thrown himself in, if she hadn't been able to hear him heaving his guts out. She'd kindled a small fire before he returned. Not something she usually did, but born folk often found solace in the random powders of flame against the darkness. Rat was shivering and damp up to the waist when up he returned. You need clothes tomorrow. I'll keep up and out for another town. Until then, she offered her cloak. It might have been poison or sorcery by the way Rat stared at it, and he shrank a little when he finally took it. Can you eat? You should try to eat. It's been a hard day for you. The bread's good and this other stuff. She held up the hollow tube. Looks like parchment, tastes like apricots. Another hesitation, but the way he tore off and chewed through a finger's length of the tube, Sancha guessed the sticky stuff might once have been one of his favorite treats. There's more, she assured him, hoping food might be a bridge of peace between them. Rat sat the apricot leather besides. Who are you? What are you? The truth this time. Like a Cesar. Why me? Why did you buy me? He took a deep breath. Not that this matters. I've been as good as dead since the Strata came. I might be a lousy liar, Rat, because I haven't lied to you. I'm Sancha. I need you because Urza needs to talk to his brother. And when I saw you among the slaves in the town, I saw Mishra. Rat stirred flames. Urza. You keep saying Urza. Do you mean Urza the artifactor, the one who was born 3,437 years ago? Ava here, straight mercy, Sancha. Urza's a legend. Even if he survived the cyclics, he's been dead for thousands of years. Maybe Urza is a legend, but he's certainly not dead. The cyclics turned the Mightstone and Weakstone into his eyes. Don't look too closely at them when you meet him. Thanks, I guess, for the warning, but I can't believe you. And if I could, it'd only make things worse. If there is an Urza still alive, he'd kill me once for reminding him of his brother, and again, because I'm not Misha. I'm no great artificer, nor great sorcerer, no great warrior. Sweet Ava here, I can't even fight you. The way you overpowered me and broke Toka's goad and that sphere that I don't understand at all. What are you anyway? I mean, there are still artificers, not as good as Urza was supposed to have been, and not in Efun Picard. But Zancha, that's not an Efun name. Are you an artifact? Of all the questions Rat might have guessed, his last was for Zancha, had really no answer. I was neither made nor born. Urza found me, and I've stayed with him because he is... She couldn't finish that thought, but offered another instead. Urza blames himself for his brother's death. The guilt still eats at his heart. He won't fight you, Rat. They both shivered, though the air was calm and warm around the little fire. Rat spoke first, softly. I've always thought the one good thing that came out of that war was that the brothers finally killed each other. If they hadn't, it never would have ended. It was the wrong war, Rat. They shouldn't have fought each other. There's another enemy. The Phyrexians. Phyrexians? I've heard of them. Living artifacts or some such. Nasty beasts, but slow and stupid. Jarsel wrote about them after the war. Rat knew his history, as much of it had been written down, errors and all. They were there at the end of the war, maybe at the beginning. That's what Urza believes. They killed Mishra and turned him into one of their own. What Urza fought was a Phyrexian. He thinks if he'd known soon enough, he could have saved his brother. Together, they could have fought the Phyrexians. So the man you call Urza thinks he could have stopped the war. Rat stared at Urza across the fire. What do you think? He had Mishra's quick wit and perception. The Phyrexians are back, Rat, and they're not slow or stupid. They're right here in Efruin Picard. I could spell them in Medran. Urza's got the power to fight them, but he won't do anything until he settles his guilt with Mishra. Rat swore at the start. These Phyrexians. Tukta and Garv. No, not them. They're with red stripes. I smelled them. He swore a second time. I'd been better off staying where I was. That was Chapter 5 of Planeswalker. Please like, subscribe, and follow on YouTube and on your chosen podcast platform. Thanks for listening.